to more people and get it to more folks. Really appreciate what they've done to do that. You may see an additional logo behind me today. We're excited that now the AD Roundtable is presented by Daktronics, the experts in scoreboards, video displays, and audio systems trusted by high schools across the country. Whether you're upgrading your scoreboard or dreaming of a big-time video board, Daktronics has the tools to make it happen and even help you pay for it through sponsorship opportunities. They've been doing it since 1968, and they know how to make your game day unforgettable. Learn more at Daktronics.com. So we appreciate them coming on board and helping us out with that. As we have our conversations today, if you've got a topic that you'd like to discuss or a question that you have for our special guest as we talk, just go ahead and put that in the chat. And Becky is our Wizard of Oz. She is working behind the curtain today, and she will help facilitate that when we get to our general topic session, as well as when we've got some follow-up questions for our special guest. So let's go ahead and get into that. Today, we're joined by Nathan Whitaker, #1 New York Times bestselling author, former Super Bowl winning executive, and a dynamic leadership and motivational speaker. Nathan's career spanned collegiate athletics at Duke University and at the highest level, serving as a scout for the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he was on staff when the Bucs won the Super Bowl. He is also author of 8 New York Times best-selling books, most of which were ones that he partnered with Hall of Fame NFL coach Tony Dungy. Quiet Strength, which is our book recommendation today, Uncommon, and The Soul of a Team, to name a few. All of those are home runs, by the way. He brings all of that experience to the boardroom, the locker room, and beyond. With his trademark blend of humor, transparency, and hard-earned insight, Nathan helps organizations revive their energy, define their purpose, and lead with both resilience and significance. And I know that he's going to make us better today, just as he will in Tampa at the NADC, where he's going to be our closing general session speaker. Nathan, thanks for saying yes, and welcome to the AD Roundtable.
Thanks, Don. It's great to be with you.
All right. So now you have been around NFL locker rooms and high-performing organizations, and I think that we can all agree that if you make it to the NFL, you're already physically gifted enough to compete at a high level. But even at the professional level, there's still a clear difference between good teams and great ones. And I think anybody that watches football, whether that be on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon or on a Sunday afternoon, can see that. And many believe that that difference has less to do with talent and more to do with culture. And I would agree. From your perspective, what truly separates good teams from great cultures?
No, I think that's a great question. And definitely on point. When I joined the Jacksonville Jaguars, you and I were talking a little bit before we started about the Jaguars, and one year we went 14-2. And part of the feedback we kept getting, feedback of, the newspaper articles and the like, were that we weren't winning by enough. We were going 14-2, we weren't winning by enough. And I remember Coach Coughlin one day, our head coach, Tom Coughlin, in the hallway saying, "We don't have any gimmies in the NFL. If we don't come to play, anybody can beat us at any time because the talent levels are right there. Yes, we might have had more talent than the Bengals or Browns back in those years, but it was minuscule." And Coach Coughlin would get so frustrated with that perception from folks. And I think that one of the things that I've seen over and over is that it comes down a lot of times to culture and this idea of, culture is a buzzword, right? You can't speak on leadership or team building these days without having you're contractually obligated to say culture. But I think it really does matter. And it really builds into what we get from our teams, that at the end of the day, we want our team to be better than just the sum of its parts. That if we take a bunch of talented people, stick them in a room, hopefully you get more from that because we shore up each other's weaknesses, we build our strengths. And I think it comes down to culture. One of the things I saw from Tony Dungy is that we were making what I thought was a roster decision, that we were dealing with a roster matter. And Tony said, "Hold on, before we do that, let's think through this because I've told the team that one of our core values is family and we're going to treat each other that way. And let's make sure we're dealing with these roster decisions in a way that we would deal with a brother, a sister, a mother, an uncle. I mean, are we bringing people into the room? Are we making decisions for the right reasons? Are we letting people know the right way in a way that we'd want to know?" And so it always came back to that. And here I was thinking, we're just dealing with the 53-man roster, right? We're just making a cut or signing somebody. He's like, whoa, if family matters, then family has to matter in everything we do and in how we go through that. Similarly, I had a coach say to me one time that culture is not what we promote. It's not what we put on the wall, right? It's what we permit, what we actually allow, and what we continue to promulgate. And so, he was saying, look, we're all going to have a culture. Like it or not, we're going to have a culture for our organization, our athletic department, our company, whatever it may be. It may be something that occurs because we're not paying attention to it and we're just allowing a culture to build up. So I think at the end of the day, it comes back to being intentional, deciding what our core values are, and then building a culture because I think that's when people feel free to really be themselves and to really lean into their strengths and help other people along the way and to be hopefully selfless as they do it.
Yeah, I think that in listening to Will Guidara, Unreasonable Hospitality. And one of the things that he talks about in that book is there was a phrase they would use, this is important to me, right?
Mm.
They may come with an idea or a concept or something they wanted to do. And if somebody said that phrase, this is important to me, it meant more, right? It carried more
Mhm.
weight. That was something that was kind of built into the culture of his restaurant, that if somebody, and they didn't just use it lightly, right?
Mhm.
Let's be clear there. When when you're talking about a culture and you talk about non-negotiables and those pillars, whatever it may be, uh, you, you you don't use those lightly. You kind of pick your moments when you have to say, man, no, this is important to me and this is something that I want to do. Um, Speaking of all of the things that we have to do as athletic administrators, I once heard it said that to be an effective leader, we must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our lives and create space for solitude because that's where depth and capacity are built. And I know that a lot of people that are on this call are laughing right now, right? Because as an athletic director, you rarely have time to eat lunch, much less find solitude. A lot of the people on this call are also assistant principals. And oh, by the way, they are parents. Before we just got on the call, I was talking about, chasing my two kids who are play high school athletics from all of the things that they do as well. You've mentioned before that leadership begins in the quiet moments, right? What did those moments look like, maybe in your own life, and how can leaders intentionally cultivate them as part of their leadership rhythm?
Yeah. So, first as an initial matter, I remember one day I'm working for the Buccaneers, and I said to one of my buddies, I think what I'd like to be someday is an athletic director. And he said, I know you, and I think you want to be a booster. I think you just want to roll into the games you want to roll in. You don't want to go to every single game. You don't want to deal with all the administration. You don't want to deal with all the coaching issues. You don't want to, parents. And I'm like, you're right. I don't want to be. So I think it's something that, again, you have to be intentional about, whether you're an athletic director or in whatever position of leadership. And I'm speaking a little bit, I come to this as an introvert, which surprises people when they see me up on stage speaking to folks and doing whatever. But there's a good chance that at some point in Tampa, I'm going to be sitting alone in my hotel room eating a pizza for dinner on my lap while I'm watching something, just to recover. But I think that's part of whether you're an introvert or otherwise, I think we have to build in moments where we've got some space, where it's just a chance to decompress or a chance to read or to catch a podcast or whatever it may be, because I do think that when we're in the fire, when we've got these moments, when things are going on, it's really hard to think through things, to process things, to whatever, and then to have the capacity and the bandwidth. I mean, there are times when we've all been there. You're just running and running and running, and my responses are not as thoughtful. My reactions are shorter than I'd like them to be and a little more emotional, probably. And so by giving myself just a chance to unwind, unplug, whatever it is to get away, certainly for me as an introvert, I need to do that on occasion anyway. But I think for all of us, we just have to have a chance where we're just able to step back and reflect and to take a moment. Because I think that's where we get a chance to grow and then just a chance to recover and be ready to deal with whatever comes our way.
Yes, you mentioned a couple things there that I wanted to kind of lean into. That idea that solitude does not mean that you were just sitting on the end of your bed in silence. You're not just sitting in a corner. Like solitude could be a lot of things.
Mhm.
Solitude could be you're going to play 9 holes of golf by yourself. It could be that you're listening to a podcast. It could be that you're reading a book. It could be a lot of things.
Mhm.
Um, what do you what would you say to a leader? Because obviously people on this call, they are leading staffs of coaches, right? And they are leading staffs of coaches that are putting in some of them up to 90 hours a week. They're tucking their kids in on Wednesday, and they're not seeing them again till Saturday because of how their schedules roll. And I'm sure you saw that even in the NFL, how both players and coaches are so invested into what they're doing, right? Because that's what's paying the bills and that's what's giving us this lifestyle. But at what cost? What would you say to that leader to articulate to their people? And you mentioned Coach Dungy talking about it being a family and that focus on family, that side of a coach is not neglected because, I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's the smartest, that's the most important side of a coach. What do you tell that athletic director to articulate that vision that, yes, we're in the kid business. Yes, we want to be successful. Yes, we want to pour into kids and make sure that they have the tools that they need to make it to that next level and be successful in life. But we can't do that at the expense of our own home.
Right. I think one of the things that comes to mind, it was a lesson I learned from Coach Dungy. I just, as I mentioned, finished 3 years with the Jaguars, and then I'd gotten to Tampa with Tony. And he would talk about, not in so many words, but this idea of diminishing returns, that we can put in hour after hour after hour, but eventually by the 88th hour, 89th hour, whatever it is, you're not as clear, you're not spotting things, you're not whatever. Yes, you've seen the film 8 times and you've uncovered every rock, but you might have uncovered them all at the fifth time through or whatever it may be. And so one of the things Tony did was that he would schedule staff meetings for he'd schedule his coaches meetings for 8:30 in the morning. And he knew that given the schedule that they were going to work into the evenings, especially as they were putting in the game plan, and then the week would get a little better when you'd get toward Thursday and Friday and coach would be able to go home. But certainly the first few nights, nobody's tucking their kids into bed or whatever it may be. And so Tony's like, look, start at 8:30. If you want to drop your kids off at school, if you want to, not do that, but do something else, it's your time, and we're not going to start till 8:30. And after he was fired in Tampa, one of the things he was telling me later, he got up to Indianapolis. His family had not joined him yet, and they were still in Tampa finishing up the school year. And so he had an apartment up there, and he thought, you know what? I'll just kind of work around the clock. I'm not going to go home to an empty apartment and whatever. So he's watching film, he's doing things, he's just kind of prepping for the upcoming season, getting to know his team, whatever. And he kept telling his coaches, hey, but I'm just doing this because my family's not here. But y'all, we don't have anything to do right now. Go home. And he said nobody would admit it to him, but he finally realized nobody's going home because he's sitting there. And so he said, I have to actually take this. So he'd stick it, and he didn't tell everybody he's working at the apartment, but he took all his stuff home to the apartment. And so that he would leave at whatever time. And that way that freed them up to go. So I think sometimes as leaders, we have to also set that example, right? It's one thing to say it. Hey, you guys go home, and you may have your own reason for sticking around, whatever it may be, but you actually have to model it at some point, right? That at some point you have to say, this is a priority for all of us. And either I'm going to schedule a meeting for 8:30 or I'm going to, whatever it may be. Because I saw firsthand, and I don't think it's just me, but I remember being exhausted in Jacksonville, and we're doing things and we're looking at salary cap information, or we're doing contracts or whatever, and just being frazzled and being exhausted and getting there trying to beat my boss in by 6 a.m. and then we'd leave at 9 or whatever and do it again and again. And after a while, you're like, I'm there's no way I'm at my best. I need a chance to recover, and I think we all need that. And so we have to actually be intentional about building in those times to put other things first and to make sure that we're able to be who we want to be. One of the things Tony kept saying was, what happens if I win the Super Bowl and I'm done and there's nothing there? There's no family to celebrate with. There's no friends that I can bring in with me. There's no, because I've been so driven that I've kind of lost sight of everything else. And I think that was very insightful.
Yeah, that's Kevin Paul Scott, one of our previous guests.
Mhm.
He has mentioned this idea of he talks about a leader who used to have what he called library days, where it was like a designated day where he would literally go to the public library where nobody knew who he was. It was quiet. It had to be quiet per the rules, right? And he would turn his phone off and he would shut his email down, and he would research, or he would have a certain task that he would do, and trying to find those little windows of time so that you can go home at night and you can see your family. I think is just crucial. Uh, Before we let you go, I don't know if we've got any questions that anybody may have before we cut you loose, Becky. If you've got anybody that has anything, feel free to uh, unmute and we can ask away.
Nothing yet, but we'll see if anyone pops anything into the chat or unmutes to ask their question.
Hey, can I jump in? Hey, Nathan, nice to meet you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, one of my favorite books is the Uncommon book you wrote with Coach Dungy. And in that quote from his college coach, Cal Stoll, about looking for uncommon people. So I'd just like to ask, in your pursuit of all these different people you've written with and your leadership opportunities, what's an uncommon person look like to you?
Yeah, I think it's somebody. Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate that question. I think it's somebody that is willing to do the kind of things we talked about, core values, priorities, whatever it may be, and not worry about what other people are thinking. I mean, there are certainly social norms and niceties and that we have to exhibit. But one of the people I wrote a book with was James Brown of CBS Sports. And JB took me to a Washington Nationals game. He was a part owner. And so we went up to the owner's suite. And in the suite was the Chief Justice, Justice Roberts, and then a bunch of other dignitaries. And so as an attorney or a former attorney, I was really excited to meet him and just was praying he wouldn't ask me any legal questions since I didn't know much in the first place and certainly forgotten it. And JB was so gracious and everybody wanted to talk to him and take pictures and the like. And then what I realized as we were leaving the game was that JB had stopped and taken longer speaking to the elevator operator than he had to anybody in the box. And they had common bonds and they had both gone to similar middle schools. And so anyway, it was a moment where I could look and see, you know what, this is somebody who's just living out his life and he's not worried about who he's rubbing shoulders with and who he's doing whatever with. And so to me, that was just a great example of being uncommon. And along those same lines, the first time I spoke to JB, Tony and I had our first book come out. JB had a book deal in place and Tony connected us. And so JB and I are on the phone and I'm still pinching myself that, I can't believe I'm writing books and that people like James Brown and Don Shul and others are calling me to ask about it. And so JB at the end said, I am just so grateful, Nathan, that you took this time to be willing to meet me and talk to me and just even consider working with me. And I kept looking at the phone. This is the old phone days. And I kept looking at the phone like, JB's thanking me. But that's just how he's wired. And he's wired to be polite and respectful and understand that everybody's is important. And so anyway, to me, that was just another example of being uncommon, that he was just going to say and be appreciative and do what he was going to do and not really worry about was he rubbing shoulders with the right people or were people being deferential because they got to speak to JB and whatever it may be. And just another good example for me along the way of somebody being uncommon.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you in Tampa.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And you don't get up to that box without the elevator operator. Just saying.
Right.
So
right. Yeah.
Kind of an important person to make sure you pat on the back. Go ahead, Becky.
Don, I was going to say Dustin Smith has unmuted himself. I'm guessing he's got a question.
He always does. Let's turn him loose.
Hey, Nathan, thanks for joining us. And I see a bunch of books behind you, and I want to ask a question that I know we got the book reference and the recommendation this month, but what are you reading right now? And what is a book that you would recommend every leader needs to read?
Okay. Well, thanks, Dustin. I appreciate it. Becky, I thought we agreed it were only going to be easy questions.
Sorry, he's a president-elect of the board. I have to let him speak.
Okay. All right. I get it. I see how it's going to be. No, that's a great question. And thanks, because I think at the end of the day, we've got to be going back to Don's question about the quiet moments and whatever. I think we have to be looking for new ideas, right? If I know everything, if all I'm going to do is let in people who are going to affirm everything I already say and everything I already think, then I'm never going to grow and I'm never going to get better. So I think that's really who we're interacting with, what we're reading. So I'm reading a book. Well, I'm just starting. I'm trying to put it off, but it's a book. It's right here on the edge of my desk, called Hostage, that was sent to me. And it's about one of the Israeli hostages who was released. And I know it's going to be really heavy, and I've just gotten into it, but I understand it's going to be a book of gratitude and really uplifting about not appreciating what we've got. Um, but on the leadership side, I really have liked a book. Been a couple of years ago that I read it, but a book called Chatter by Ethan Kross. He's a University of Michigan researcher. And what I really liked about that book is he talks about our inner voice and how important it is for all of us to have an inner dialogue. It's helpful to reaching our goals, to revisiting our priorities. But then for a lot of us, certainly for me, it becomes really negative. And so I speak to myself in ways that I would never say anything to you, Dustin, or Don, or Becky, or anybody here. I would just never talk to you the way I'll speak to myself. And so it's just an acknowledgement of that and then some strategies in how we deal with that. And I think that's really helpful also in dealing with our coaches, our kids, understanding that everybody's got this inner voice that's talking to them and sometimes not in a very positive way. So anyway, so those are a couple of thoughts. A leadership book that I think everybody should read, because I'm absolutely not going to name one of my own, even though you all should buy them, even if you don't read them, buy them. Um, so there's some great leadership thinkers out there. Obviously Maxwell and some others. One of the people I really like is Patrick Lencioni. I think he does a great job talking about teams and the like. So anyway, those would be, and then I've got one in progress right now that I can't announce yet, but I think I'll be able to in December because we're just going to publishers. It'll be a leadership book, so I'll tell you about that one then.
Don, do we have time for another question? Nathan, I guess I should be asking you.
I was going to say it's fine with me.
If it's easier, I've got time.
I can't make any promises, but Jake Von Shearer has a question, and I'll let him unmute and ask that.
Okay.
I know, Don, it's a big surprise. I'm going to ask a question here, but Nathan, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all you do. So many of your books, so many of your presentations, you've spoken with coaches and coaching organizations, and you talk frequently about identity and finding and knowing your identity as the coaches, or as the coach of coaches. How can we, get better at finding our identity and the identity of the people that we're trying to lead?
Thanks, Jake. Always good to see and hear from you. I don't know about coach of coaches, but I'll take it. But I do think that, you and I spoke a few weeks ago about identity and kind of went back and forth on that. And one of the things I think it's really important, again, maybe in the quiet moments of reflection, but to sit there and think about, who am I? And, the exercise that we may have heard, but if you were to write your own eulogy, what would you write? What do you think somebody would reasonably say? And if you don't like what you're writing, then stop and say, okay, the whole story hasn't been written yet. And who do I want to be? And what do I want to, do I want to be a trusted friend? Do I want to be loyal? Do I want to be somebody who won at all costs? What do I want to be remembered as? And so what does it take then for that to be who I am? And one of the things you and I chatted a bit about was this college classmate of mine who now does public relations. And I said to her not too long ago that maybe, I'm always trying to think about my branding and what it means, and I hate to promote myself and whatever, but maybe I should talk to you. And she said, you don't want my PR firm, because we deal with crisis management. People only come to us when they've had the really bad thing happen to their business, personally, whatever it is, and then we try to help rehabilitate them. And she said, at the end of the day, the reason so often people end up in crisis, whether it's a company or a person, they forget who they are. They forget their core values, they forget their identity, and they start to either cut corners or do things they wouldn't have done if they had taken a moment to stop and reflect. And I think that's really important to remember, that we probably need to stop and think about, who am I? What am I trying to do? What am I reading, Dustin? Whatever it may be, what am I doing to help myself grow, to stay grounded to who I am and what my identity is and who I'm going to be? So thank you, Jake. Thank you, Dustin. I appreciate those questions. And Joshua.
I'm going to ask you if time for one more. We had one more from the audience.
Sure.
James Smith had a question, and I'll let him unmute and ask his question.
Nathan, Thanks for being here. I don't know if you remember me, Duke class of '88. We played baseball together way back when.
Yes.
So
Yes,
it's a pleasure to
we
see
were
you.
fellow shortstops.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was happy to see that you were going to be the speaker, and I had to join in and just say hello. And I'll be down in Tampa too at the convention. So hopefully I will get to connect in person down there at some point.
That'd be
So,
great. For
yeah.
those of you listening, James is the reason I rode the bench as much as I did. So
No,
thank you for
no,
nothing.
that's absolutely untrue. But I did see that you used that famous picture of our Georgia Tech game as a motivational thing, and I have that literally have that up in my office right here as a reminder. So
I've got it right over there. We lost 19 straight at one point.
yeah,
We made the Orioles back in those days when they were losing a bunch in a row. We made the Orioles look good. We lost 19 straight and beat number 5 Georgia Tech by scoring 10 runs in the bottom of the ninth. And the Atlanta Journal and Constitution put a picture of us on the front page with the poor Georgia Tech catcher laying on the ground as we were jumping around him. So anyway, a classic photo. James, thanks so much for popping on, and I look
well,
forward to seeing
I
you in
really
Tampa.
would like to ask you, like, in terms of building culture, at the beginning of it, I think, there's a lot of energy, enthusiasm for the values and getting it started. How do you get over the roadblocks down the road when it starts to, everybody's excited in the beginning, but then as thing goes on and old habits start to creep back in, how do you keep that focus going to keep building on that culture and keep improving that?
Yeah, that's so hard. And James, once again, you're thwarting my efforts to look good. Um, but no, I do think that's really hard. And there is an energy and enthusiasm. We got the honeymoon period and the first 100 days or first 90 days or whatever it may be. I think part of it's relationships. I think part of it's continuing to touch base. I've had a bunch of coaches say they don't meet for the sake of meeting. And I think that's great. But I do think there are times when we have to get together and make sure that we're talking about things, that it doesn't just become, we've all seen the poster on the wall, right? The slogan that we've got painted across the weight room. And to make sure, are we really living that out? And what does that mean? And so I do think we have to continue to touch base, to check in. Um, Clint Hurdle told me one time that he would meet with his staff quarterly toward the end of his managerial career, meet with his staff quarterly, and he would say, I want you to give me 3 ups and 3 downs. Tell me 3 things I'm doing well and 3 things I'm not. And he said the first time through it, they're going, this is great, and this is great, and this is great. And he'd stop them and go, okay, only 3. And then they wouldn't have anything that he wasn't doing well until they got to trust him and be comfortable and understand that. And so he said by the second or third quarter, he's like, whoa, stop. You only get to tell me 3 things I need to improve. But again, I think some of those ways to touch base, we create safety, we create trust, but then hopefully in those conversations, we're able to unearth, are we losing something? Have we lost sight? Are we not really living out the culture we thought we were going to live out? So I think all those things are important and can matter. But you're right, it's really hard when you kind of lose that initial energy and momentum, that it is something we, again, have to be intentional about. And what are my core values and how am I going to keep plugging into that? Even if people get tired of hearing me say family or whatever it may be,
Right.
I got to keep doing it. So
Thanks.
That's really
absolutely. Thanks for
Good to
popping
see you,
in.
man.
That's really good. And James, I would answer that question by saying same answers to different questions, right? So like you have whatever your core values are, right? Kid first, find the opportunity. Nothing beats hard work. But you have those things, those non-negotiables. And when it starts to get a little rocky and things start to get a little different, it's the same answers to different questions. We go back to those things. And as long as that is the constant answer to every question, I think that helps keep you, on track, so to speak. Nathan, thank you so much for the time. More time than I lied to you a little bit, but we appreciate you hanging out with us today.
Absolutely. And I look so forward to seeing you all in Tampa. Thanks so much, Don, and everybody.
How can people connect with you? Obviously, they're going to see you down there, but how can they connect with you if they'd like to?
Yeah. So I'm on social media and the like, but the easiest way to connect with all that is probably my website, nathanwhitaker.com. My wife calls it my shrine to me. But you can find me through there and connect with me, and I answer my own emails. And so I'd be thrilled to interact. So.
Awesome. Thank you again for the time. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. So again, our book recommendation for this month is Quiet Strength. And again, pretty much anything with whether it be Tony Dungy or Nathan Whitaker's name on it, it's going to be good. But I wanted to make sure that you guys got at least one formal recommendation today. Again, that is a book that is really it's perfect for anybody, but it's a lot of down to earth wisdom about balancing that work and family, and really blending it as well, because that's what we have to do, and just learning to live with humility, with integrity, throughout your leadership journey. So again, just kind of wanted to put that up there. And then our podcast recommendation for this month is Front Row Seat with Ken Coleman. Don't know if you are aware of this or not. This is an absolute home run of a podcast. Ken is joined by industry leaders, world-class experts in their fields for conversations on how to get better, move up, and lead well personally and professionally. I just want to give one plug. Recently, he had over 100 years of leadership advice in 97 minutes. He had John Maxwell, Patrick Lencioni, it was mentioned earlier, and Dave Ramsey. He had them all sitting around, and he was able to pick their brain for about an hour and a half. It is absolute gold. I've probably watched the thing 5 times and taken notes and slowed it down to have that much experience in the leadership space in one place. That's what you're going to get from this podcast. So just kind of wanted to make sure that you guys got that today if you didn't already know about it. All right, before we wrap up, I just want to transition into our discussion topics. Becky, don't know if we've got any that are in the chat. If we do, let me know and we can dive into those, or I may be able to pull a rabbit out of here.
Nothing yet, but we'll see if anyone drops something in there. If not, maybe you want to get us started on conversation and then we'll see where it goes.
Sure. So I believe that the state of Ohio has been in the news recently with the conversation of high school NIL and allowing it, not allowing it, and what their plan is. I know that they had fought that for a while. And if I could give any advice to schools in Ohio, it is that the sky is not falling. I'm not here to tell you it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just here to tell you it's a thing. And just speaking from my own personal experience, I've got roughly 13,000 athletes in my district. 12 of them have a NIL deal. Out of the 12, maybe 2 of them are making any kind of money off of that. So the sky didn't fall. Team dynamics haven't been eroded. And our state has created a set of guidelines and guardrails that have kind of helped us navigate this world to keep bad actors at bay. And so I will tell you this, and I believe Jake said it was going to be 1st of November. We have a conversation about this on his podcast, but the courts are siding with the student athletes, and that's exactly what happened in Ohio. They got a temporary injunction because there was a family of a young man who wanted to be able to get an NIL deal, who's a pretty good recruit. The courts are going to side with the student athletes. At the end of the day, it's that kid's name, that kid's image, and his likeness or her likeness. It belongs to them, doesn't belong to anybody else. And so the courts are going to side with them because ultimately it's a civil rights issue and you're not going to win. But if I could say anything to anybody that's kind of on the fence on this issue, it's just that we are living it. And we came to work today and the building had 4 walls on it, and the air works and the internet works and everything's fine. And the number of kids that are actually doing it is very minimal because your 1%ers that could really make a lot of money, they want to make money in college. And they don't want to do anything in high school that's going to jeopardize that. And so just kind of wanted to kind of put that out there. I don't know if anybody had any opinion one way or the other or wanted to discuss, but that was something that I know has been in the news recently. So just kind of wanted to mention that.
Great. So far, nothing in the chat. I do see we have Scott Drabzik is unmuted. Does that mean he has something to share with us?
No, my apologies.
Cool.
I thought he was.
Else?
I actually thought that he did have something. I saw as part of the NIAAA District AD cohort today, we were talking about the proposed pay scale for coaches in the state of Florida and how that's going to impact athletic directors. I don't know if any of our Florida people want to chime in on that or not. Maybe you could speak to it better than I could.
I know there's a few on here. Drabs is unmuted again.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about it. I mean, there's a big push from Florida Coaches Coalition, which is kind of a not-for-profit group trying to make change in coaches' pay and stipends and whatnot. And you know, there's quite a bit of discussion on it, especially online and social media, and it's kind of got to some parts of the state legislature, but there still isn't any movement on it yet. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out the next couple of days on that, or next couple months on that front. I don't know if there's any other Florida ADs on right now.
Scott, does your legislative session, is that wrap up roughly March-ish?
Yes. Yeah, it's somewhere in that spring time frame.
Yeah. All
Don, I
right.
don't see anyone else unmuted or anything in the chat, but we can
Okay.
do a kind of a last call.
Yeah, sure. So last call, anybody have either something that you'd like to discuss, hot topic, or maybe even a problem of practice that we could help you with? All right. Fair enough. Again, I hope you find value in this. I hope that Nathan's words were helpful to you today. I think that he is going to be a home run when we get to him. Let's see. Advice for hiring coaches and or what to do with first-year head coaches is the question.
Sorry about that. I'll jump in and just kind of give a shameless plug. We do have a great class. I think it's Cy. And I say great class, that's kind of arrogant, but 704 is a class that you might want to take at the national conference that addresses that specifically, both those hiring coaches and first-year coaches. So
he's not going to bring it up, so I will. Josh is an athletic director in the district where I work, and one of the great ideas that I got from him is a pre-interview packet that is sent to candidates. It is a way to assess multiple things. You're able to ask questions in advance of the interview, and you give the candidate a deadline. You have to have this back to us by next Tuesday. Well, if it comes in on Wednesday, I don't need to have a conversation with you. I already know what I need to know. I gave you an easy deadline, and you weren't able to meet it. Additionally, it makes that first initial interview a little bit easier. It's not quite as awkward. You know a little bit more about them. They know a little bit more about you. And I think it works really on both sides. I think that it helps you as the person interviewing because you get a little bit more background on the person prior to. It also allows you to provide information, about your place that I think one of the worst things a candidate can do is come in and go, why this place? Or what do you know about us? And the response is, well, not too much. Well, okay. Well, thanks for playing. I don't really know what else to tell you. But a pre-interview packet is a great idea. Josh is the one that I got the idea from, used it for 2 hires who were both home runs because we were able to kind of get a preview of them as a candidate prior to them actually interviewing. And I think somebody put in the chat a mentor. I think that's a must, especially with younger coaches who are just getting into it.
Don, we recently had a podcast guest on, a college AD, and she had a philosophy. She said, exceptional talent needs minimal oversight. And so in the hiring, she was looking for that exceptional people. I love Josh's idea about the pre-interview packet, since most of us, might not be hiring that exceptional talent right out of the chute. Obviously, it comes down to mentoring. And a phrase I picked up many years ago, I didn't invent it, was, that young coach might not walk in your office as a Hall of Fame coach, but with your leadership, your mentoring, or the mentoring of others in 20, 25 years, they might walk out as a Hall of Fame coach. So, it really has to be intentional that you're not just hiring them and then throwing them to the wolves. You got to be there. Your mentor coach has to be there. You got to do it.
Daryl, would you mind unmuting yourself and talking about that list that you guys use?
Sure. And I can't remember where we got it from. I'm sure we stole it from somebody on here or an LTI class, something like that. But it's a list of characteristics with a little pie chart, like a little circle at the bottom. And we asked, like, as a pre-interview, just send them out and say, hey, look at this list and tell us what are the 4 or 5 things that are most important to you and the attributes that align with that, and give us a percentage of what you think it might be. And, some of them, it's like knowledge of sport might be 80% of it. And that's good, but you're coaching more than the sport. You're coaching the kid, right? So it gives us kind of an idea, a little bit of what they're looking for. If they don't put problem solving or relationships or facility, I mean, there's all kinds of things that they could put. You kind of get a little quick look into the soul a little bit before they get there, and you can direct questions to them about that.
That's good stuff. Somebody had mentioned in the thing, informal check-ins, that idea of just showing up at a practice where they're working. Watch them work. As far as a young coach that you've hired, watch them, just observe them, watch them work, and then give them feedback. And don't always look for the things where they need to improve upon. Look at the stuff that they're doing good. I think that this is kind of a thing I've heard recently here. This idea of don't just look at the tape to see all of the bad things that you're doing. Look at the tape to also look at what you've done that was correct, and then build upon that as well. I think that's probably more important. Let's look at what we do well, and then let's replicate that and lean into that. I think that's great advice for a young coach.
Don, I don't know where I heard this not too long ago. It was probably a podcast. They were like, you hire people for what they know and you fire them for who they are. Mm-hmm. I don't remember who said that, but it came up again on something the other day. Like, they can be really good in an interview. Like, I'm convinced we hired a guy this summer who was a professional interviewer at one of our schools. I think it wouldn't matter what question we asked him, he would have been a polished interview. I don't know that he's going to survive the year. Right. Because he knows a lot, but you got if he doesn't survive, it'll be because of who he is, not what he knows. He knows a lot. Right. And so I think about that when we get into these formal interviews and formal hiring questions. Everybody can do the formal question. You should be prepared for that. You got to get kind of off script and get them to talk about other things. I think has really helped me try to get to know them before we turn them loose on a bus full of kids.
Gary, I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on what you said, but I think it's a great point.
No, thank you very much, Don. Thank you for this opportunity for all of us. I've always thought that and I always said that the supervision evaluation process of coaches begins at the interview. That's where it all starts. And I like the idea of the pre-interview packet, because that backs the process up even earlier. But I just as we know that, when you're looking at references, you like to find references for people they don't list, because the people they do list are going to give you the best possible response, most likely. But the same thing with our questions. I don't like to ask questions about summarizing your career in athletics. I can find that on the resume. I can look that up. I might be able to Google that answer. But what I've found most helpful, particularly with our head coaching interviews, is to provide them with a whole number of various scenarios that we put them into a position where you're in this situation. And I'll give you 2 very quick examples. Your baseball coach, is a rainy day or going to be a rainy day, and you think I might cancel the game, and your best pitcher is going up against the opponent that day. Talk to me about a conversation we might have. And some people will tell me it's your call, you're the boss, and others will sort of see where their values are. I had another question I asked, and it was interesting because this particular coach who answered this question was in the situation 3 months later. He's in this very situation. It's senior night. It's the playoffs are on the line, a spot in the tournament, what have you. You have a couple of seniors who have not played very much during the year. Describe to me how you're going to construct your lineup that day. When their answers puts them in a real situation, they will tell you. You sort of see what their values are, where they what they emphasize, what they believe in, their how they're going to communicate with their kids, all those types of things through those situations. And I found candidates that maybe provide an answer which was not as strong, but we thought they were a good candidate to coach for us. It gives us an opportunity to find out what we need to work on. If I give you 8 situations and 7 of them, I think you're going to be a good fit. In the 8th situation that analyze, I think you might need work. Well, I can work with you on that. I can mentor you. I can coach you. So I found that to be very helpful. It also makes for a much more interesting interview and create some really interesting follow-up questions as well. So that's a tactic that I've used over the years that has worked out pretty well.
Yeah, Zach, we'll get to you in just a second. I know I was recently on an interview panel, and one of the questions that really hit with every candidate and really helped us to narrow down who that selection was going to be was describe a time when you have failed. What did you learn? Right? You're going in there to try to get a job, and someone's asking you, tell me about a time when you failed and fell on your face. The people that could answer that effectively and go, this is what happened. This was how I handle it. I probably should have handled it differently. If I had to do it again, this is how I would do it. Now that tells me you've got a growth mindset. It tells me that you're learning from your experience. Whereas we did have a candidate who said, you know what? I can't think of anything. Oh, really? Well, again, thanks for your time, sir. You're lying. I don't know what else to tell you. Zach, if you wanted to close us out on that idea about calling a timeout in the interview.
Yeah, sure. Like many others on here, I think I heard the idea at a conference somewhere, maybe Tampa, Nashville, you name it. But we picked up this piece where towards the end of the interview, we just said, okay, and random, I'm going to call timeout for a second. Here's a marker board. Teach us something. You have 2 minutes. And almost everybody says the same thing. Well, wait, what do you want me to teach? This is your time to shine. And we learned so much about people in that little bit of period of time. And most of the time I let them go on longer than 2 minutes, right? Because they're rolling. Philosophy. Some people will jump right into, here's my philosophy. Here's what we do. Here's what it means to be a wildcat, right? Other people got into X's and O's, and then you saw their body of work. And we've seen every end of that spectrum. I had one person who he was the fan favorite. He was a local guy. The kids loved him. He walked in with a playbook that was huge, and when it came time and he didn't know this was coming, he really struggled. He really struggled to put X's and O's on a board. And likewise, the best interview I've ever had, person we've ever hired, walked into the room and he put the marker down. He wrote one word on the board and he said, Mudita. And everybody looked at each other like, what is this? He says, we have a Mudita mentality. And he talked about what the philosophy was going to be part of the team, a part of the program, and be a better human being in our community. And we had a young man sitting on the committee who was we always brought a student, but a student who didn't play that sport. And we let him talk first when everybody would leave. And we asked Connor, he said, what do you think? He goes, my gosh, I want to play basketball now. That guy's awesome. And he ended up being one of our best classroom teachers. And so what a home run on 2 minutes of teach us something.
That is great. At the end of the day, they're teachers first. So can they do that on the fly there? I think that's a great way to kind of round us out. Our next guest is Panit Dasa. He is going to be the opening speaker in Tampa. So we're going to kind of bookend that as we head into the NADC on November 19th. Look forward to that. I will tell you, it is the first conversation that I have ever had with a monk. Okay. And I'll leave it at that. Was a monk in a monastery in New York for roughly 15 years. And he's taken the lessons that he learned as he was a monk that time and he's kind of relaying those in speaking engagements and workshops, and he's going to kind of pour into us down in Tampa. So looking forward to that. Again, thanks again for you taking the time today. Hope that you have found value in the AD Roundtable, that you continue to do that. Lastly, I want to again thank our sponsor for the AD Roundtable, Daktronics, bringing big league scoreboards and video displays to high school athletics. And again, you can learn more about Daktronics at daktronics.com. Thanks again, everybody, and look forward to our conversation next month. Take care.